Welcome to the second Brand Lounge webinar in our series of activity. In this session, we're going to be focusing on branding in the real estate sector and looking at how we are maximizing impact in competitive markets and how branding is at the core of a very important market. So just to introduce ourselves, if you didn't join us for our first ever inaugural webinar, I'm Zak McKinven. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Brand Lounge. Supported my colleague who actually wrote the white paper that we'll share later, Ibrahim.
Yeah, I'm Ibrahim Lahoud. I'm the head of strategy and insights. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. So really the purpose of today's session is we've seen massive evolution and growth across the region, is looking at how we can harness the power of brand to empower not only real estate professionals, but brands, and how strategic branding can help you differentiate within a very competitive and growth market at the moment, and how really real estate is transcending spaces to become more about aspirational lifestyle and identity moving forward. Quick agenda, just we'll have a very quick look at the current, what we're classifying as the GCC cocoon, when we look at market context, both internationally and against that of what's happening regionally, how the magic trick or tricks, because there's more than one element of how brand strategy can help us drive our methodology of the dimensions of real estate and how you truly differentiate in a marketplace. And then a quick case study just to showcase how we've done it for one of our clients, moving forward to then any Q&As moving forward. So when we look at the current context of the market, we can see here that there's what's happening globally is actually we're seeing in certain key countries around the world that investments are decreasing. China, a rate of 7.9% over the last year. The UK continues in terms of investments being moved elsewhere, particularly with new government in place and new taxation that's happening with property purchases or second home purchases within those markets. But really the opposite's happening within the GCC. We're seeing mass influx of investment, up to a market size valued at this year of $4.6 trillion. So substantial growth. When we look closer to home in terms of the UAE's residential sector alone, prices are continuing to going up and are forecast accordingly. One of the key challenges we're seeing here, though, is with that demand increase and with new supply coming onto the market as well, the key challenge is differentiation, how you bring across something that's unique that attracts investors or end users or even both into that saturated marketplace, and how brand plays a role to really look at how you can differentiate. So current our own research through multiple sources has indicated that 87% of brands, which covers developer brands as well as destination brands, are lacking differentiation in what they do. So an opportunity to stand out and really position yourselves in a differentiated way. Within that GCC cocoon of growth, there's some key market drivers that we have seen that are helping really to drive that growth, both of investment and demand. Government initiatives, as we know, with what's happening across the region, mass investment into mega projects, giga projects, massive mixed use destination development, into then lifestyle initiatives from what's happening with Vision 2024, Vision 2030 and beyond, which really from a real estate perspective is seeing how we're enhancing lifestyle and livability within the choices of the destinations you decide to live and invest in, all the way through to how that lifestyle is driving things like happiness index and other positivity in terms of healthcare and well-being. That's supported with what we're seeing in luxury properties. So rapidly rising demand for luxury properties, which has been substantial over the last 24 to 48 months, I would say. We saw the shift in the region of the introduction of more mass market properties over the last 5 to 10 years, and that continues to grow in certain areas. Certainly, Ibrahim, when we look at the UAE with what's happening with the evolution of Dubai South, even the west side
How Dubai is growing
of
inland,
Dubai.
now. Absolutely, big project like Expo City now is really taking a huge chunk of the market. And to your point, how it's going inward now with announcements like the new metro lines.
Yep.
And God, I mean, they launched just the drone delivery yesterday, and they started already with the actual first on-ground tests,
Okay.
just between brackets. So
yeah, from Todd, in terms of transport networks, that we're seeing certainly growth across
yeah,
KSA with the launch of the metro
the
now
metro
there. What's
finally,
happening
yeah,
with the expansion in the UAE is all helping to support that evolution. And again, how you can differentiate through innovation,
big question.
but also that growth in luxury as what we're seeing, the purchasing power and the investment climate from those who are, looking either for further investments or a safe haven for life and lifestyle, is seeing that massive expansion into the area. Also, branded residencies. So, I mean, this has been a trend that's been continually evolving, right? It's from the hospitality businesses, as we know, majority of the time now is a move away from sole assets in hotels, as you can get a quicker return by having a branded residencies.
Totally. And that's shifting actually from big famous hospitality brands to fashion.
Yep.
Even furniture. I mean, Natuzzi, the famous Italian furniture brand, has just launched their new branded residence. All the big fashion
Automotive, when you look at
even
Bugatti, Lamborghini,
exactly. So, yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to branded residences outside the hospitality industry itself.
Well, that's something we'll come on to later, in terms of key differentiation. But in short, massive, demand, and that continues to grow for luxury properties and branded residence. The importance, which again we'll go into more detail on, emotional and rational drivers to support that purchasing decision. And the GCC being a very much a safe haven choice for high net worth and ultra high net worth investors. So we're seeing the shift really and move from more of the where to live, but more in the how to live and what the component makeup will be to support a differentiation, the storytelling aspects of how you sell property moving forward, and how through purposeful brand building you can really drive that differentiation. Where we see the magic tricks of brand strategy really being at the core of how you drive that through core messaging. And really this shift from brand strategy and evolution to provide strategic solutions to drive a competitive advantage is critical in the marketplace, where we're seeing the key challenges of market saturation. So how do you combat that differentiation, clear value proposition, the storytelling of the opportunity of what you're buying into, price competition. Well, here, this distinctive positioning can help differentiate away just from a price model, but to command a higher value. Generic positioning, we're seeing a lot in the marketplace. Well, let's drive an emotional connection in everything we do. So it's not just about the biggest or the best. It's what does it mean for me? All the way through from limited differentiation. Well, how are we looking at unique propositions to drive that differentiation in the marketplace?
Absolutely. Okay, so before we get into the how we do it part, if we look again a little bit at the previous slide and we look at the risks involved with market saturation, this is where we start getting into the de-risking of the business. And how do we de-risk our business when we are in a real estate situation? Most of the time, we hear clients talking about tangibles. So, I have a taller building. I have, more expensive. I have luxury. I have this. That doesn't work. Today, when we get into a saturated market, everybody's tackling the same issues on the ground. Everybody's building bigger, taller, more luxurious. That's not the question. That's not how we differentiate. To de-risk, you need to build equity. In order to build equity, we need to build perception. So the lesser risk is only driven by higher equity. So now, how do we build equity? It's not in the tangibles. Equity is built through the brand. And we always outline the beautiful formula of brand equity. It's how people think of you as a brand compared to competition over time. So when we start thinking about that, how can we de-risk our business? How can we establish enough saliency? The only way to do it is about building brand equity. And if you think about it right now, think about your couple top of mind real estate brands. I'm sure most of you already had Amar to start with, followed by a couple others. So this is the power of building equity because equity feeds into the tangibles later on. So our philosophy is very simple, and we always use that philosophy in any industry we tackle. And we strongly believe that any part of the brand has to fall under one of those four. Okay. So purpose, innovation, culture, and image. This is the beautiful ecosystem of a brand where each dimension feeds into the other to really maximize value. So when we talk about purpose, purpose is always the biggest, answers the biggest question of all, right? Why do we exist? And we always keep hammering whenever we're talking to real estate clients. And most of the time, they start by showing us their beautiful plans and master plans and architect renditions and stuff like that. And we told them, hold on, every client we sit with, show us the same. Why do you exist? Why would I work with you? Why would I trust you? So the purpose answers two very important questions. One, what's my contribution to the market overall? But most importantly, what's the impact of that contribution? Impact is that big question of clients when they ask you, what's in it for me? You're talking about big, beautiful, expensive. Fine. What's in it for me? What am I getting out of all of this? Purpose answers this. The purpose you set for yourself is something that will take you all the way. Missions, visions, and all these kind of statements might change as we go or as the market shifts, but your purpose never changes. This is the strongest path for a brand to build equity.
Just this, we're on that subject. I
Yeah,
mean, it's quite interesting because if you look at purpose across, you mentioned about some of the pillar, real estate developers out there. Um, there's purpose driven within their overarching group brand, right?
correct.
But then there
Absolutely.
needs to be a purpose of how that translates as a DNA into
Absolutely.
each next destination development
Absolutely.
that they're launching to
Absolutely.
market.
Beautiful point because it actually segues into the next phase. So when we get into innovation, and again, every time we do a webinar or a presentation, we always put the disclaimer, innovation is not about technology only. So we have to to point it out. Technology is definitely a big driver, but innovation is not. So going back to Zach's point, how do you develop your portfolio? How do you develop a brand architecture that carries your purpose and trickles it down to each and every division? So if you claim you're into luxury, how do you deal with a division that is not luxury? How do you bring luxury to feed into a lesser division? So the lend and borrow that works within your brand, but also works within the identity of the nation you're working within. So it's very important to understand how are we building a brand that feeds into our own purpose, our own portfolio, but also how does it become part of the entire positioning of the nation we're operating. And I mean, we hear whenever you say Dubai or the UAE or Riyadh or Saudi Arabia, it immediately triggers specific perceptions in our minds. Those perceptions are mostly driven by the brands that operate within those territory. So how can we borrow from the power of Dubai, for example, and how can we lend to the Dubai brand by itself? So that's a very big responsibility, but at the same time, that's a huge benefit and advantage for us. So when we talk about innovation, first question we ask is, as a real estate developer, what is your incremental benefit? What do you really do better than your competition? And that question really defines, again, how do we feed into our equity? Two, how are we developing a business model that can allow us to stretch both horizontally and vertically? So we see today, for example, Amar is going into entertainment. We see brands that start with a pure hospitality, then move into mixed use, then they move into residences, then they move into entertainment, they build golf clubs. This is amazing, but this is the answer to a very solid brand architecture that allows the brand to stretch while still making sense. So for me, it makes sense if brand X gets into building golf clubs or gyms. And that's very important. The third and final part of innovation we tackle is disruption. So how are we disrupting? And again, disruption does not have to be always about technology. It could, and that's amazing. But really, how are we making an impact on the market in a way that people can see us, feel us, and remember us for what we're doing?
I mean, this is where brand strategy is at the core, right? Because
Absolutely.
actually, if we're to drive differentiation and uniqueness, in terms of how you're building that foundation has to align with the actual experience, but actually can help influence it. So, okay, if that's to run true as a brand experience, how are we innovating? How does the component makeup of a mixed use destination sit with that brand foundation?
Exactly.
So it's the yin and the yang, if you like, to deliver differentiation.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And actually, this is about really finding that sweet spot between what's out there and what really people need. So that little sweet spot in the middle is really about innovation. We know, or basically we should know, we should be aware about the needs of our markets and consumers. So it's not always a push approach. It's not feeding the market with tall buildings and ending up saying, yeah, they will surely love it. That's not the point. The point is really understanding what the market needs and see how we can feed into that market. And this is where innovation starts really playing a big role. The third dimension we always tackle, and we think when it comes to the real estate slash hospitality business, this is one of the most important dimensions, culture. Now, we all know that culture is internal. How do we behave internally? How do we interact internally? How do we uphold specific values that amplify our brand? But mind you, everything we do on the inside in business always bleeds outside. And that's very important. How do we let the market feel our culture on the outside? Again, we all understand that people connect with stories, people connect with emotions, with feelings. Culture plays an amazing role into projecting those to the outside. We always talk about the culture of Netflix, for example, and this is one of the cultures that I love because they summarize the entire culture into words: freedom and responsibility. So you have the freedom to do anything you want, but you have the responsibility to get the business done, you know? And people connect heavily with this. So how do we build a culture that really triggers specific behaviors internally, but also externally? And again, that feeds in the entire circle. And last but not least, image. Now, when we say image, another disclaimer, it's not your logo, all right? It's not your business card. Image is the container of everything we've been doing in the background, our purpose, how we innovate, our culture. Everything comes out in that huge, important container called image. This is where the rubber touches the road. This is where people get in touch with who you are verbally, visually, through communication, through each and every touch point we tackle. Okay? So when we bring these four pillars together, this is where we can start having a brand that has mileage, a brand that can not survive, but actually live in the mind of our consumers. And this is where our products start making sense. So it's very important to start thinking and answering the big question, why do you exist as a real estate brand today? And that answer has to come from the angle of your market: investors, developers, end users, tenants, owners, you name it. And each and every one of them have a different perspective on how to approach the concept of real estate. Okay. So if we want to start breaking things down a little bit and see how it really affects the entire industry when it comes to purpose. For example, how do you create meaningful living spaces? How do we enhance quality of life? So before we get deeper, two words that we need to remember: peace of mind, quality of life. The entire industry of real estate and hospitality is summarized by these two words. Anything we do has to fall under one of those two pillars: peace of mind, quality of life. And we cannot provide one. We cannot tell our clients, well, it's a very safe location, but you know what? We don't have pools, we don't have a park, we don't have a gym. The building's not nice, but hey, you're safe. We cannot do the opposite either. We cannot say we have amazing amenities, but we don't know. Maybe we'll hike our rent by 200% next year, or the price of your property will be depreciated by 200% next year. That's not peace of mind. Finding the equilibrium between both will be the role of your brand strategy from the get-go. So that's why we talk about living spaces that enhance life, defining our contribution and impact. What are we giving our end users? Emotional connections. Remember, even investors are attached to their emotion. Financials are primarily about emotions, not rational, right? I mean, we
True.
always get that confusion of, we're in the rational part, we're just investors. Why are we investing? That's the big question. So it's very important to always understand the balance that we're creating between quality of life and peace of mind, aligning with social and environmental values. Today, we know the entire world is so high on sustainability, on the environment, and people, the new generation mostly, is so aware of this. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you don't have enough trees, I'm going somewhere else. So that's very important actually. When
It's funny you bring that on that subject. What we're seeing is a lot of nature-inspired
Yeah,
launches out there as well. Or, I
absolutely.
mean, what does that really mean? So, yeah, the emotional connect,
Yeah,
it isn't about the percentage of foliage makeup. What does it mean to
exactly,
me from a lifestyle perspective that you need
exactly.
to tell
Yeah,
more of a story around? Also, the emotional connect, you're right, not just the rational with investors, but a savvy investor knows the emotional connect that will be built from the end user as well as
yeah,
part of their investment
yeah,
from renting out. That it's a place people want to live, spend their
absolutely.
life as a home, right?
Actually, the only safeguard of your investment is the emotional end user, to
Yeah,
your point. If I invest and I don't have enough emotional equity, that's not going to work. I'm going to lose my investment at the end. So
absolutely.
everything boils down in a way to emotions. When we get into innovation, I mean, we're talking about smart homes, IoT. How functional are they? How are they serving the purpose? Again, so it's not about the number of switches and screens. It's about the impact of those on my life, on my quality of life, and on my peace of mind. Again, sustainable design, green technologies, amenities, digital. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the merge today between the two worlds, how streamlined is it? How integrated is it, moving from physical to digital seamlessly?
Mhm.
And this is something we're not seeing a lot actually. Most of the time there's like big jump, and we were just talking actually before we got on the call about bots,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
customer service and bots. Uh, I don't know what you think, guys, but that scares me,
No,
right?
it's scary, but I think also on the basis of how you can have more tailored communication. At the end of the day, I might not want to speak to a salesperson, right? But I'm happy to engage with an AI-driven assistant or chat function that will give me the information I need without being emotionally sold to a certain extent.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, how technology is a play in that, and see mass innovation even, in master planning, how now AI can support the how you maximize the value of each piece of real
Absolutely.
estate and tailor thousands of scenarios to make the best component makeup in terms of that master planning and architecture
Absolutely. And
and
that's why
component mix.
the
Yeah,
component mix,
yeah,
absolutely. And that's why we always keep talking about AI is still a tool. And we always talk about, we give examples like Uber. and Airbnb, where everybody thinks, oh, amazing technology company. And we keep reminding people these are not technology companies. They use technology. And this is an amazing approach to seamlessness when we integrate technology into real life scenarios. So, how are you going to do this in your own organizations? How are you going to bring the digital into the physical world in a very seamless approach? This is innovation. So, when we get into culture, how do we foster shared values internally and aspirations? Because, as we said in the beginning, that's going to bleed outside. How do we create authentic residences or buildings or projects or developments, because we are moving out of the cookie cutter concept that used to be implemented 20 years ago when the region started booming. We saw a lot of cookie cutter projects. Now we're getting more into personalization. This is part of our culture, which is part of our purpose, which affect how we innovate. So again, the power of the ecosystem and how all the components come together is incredibly important. Again, we are in a way touching a lot on the service also. Okay. So service design is very important. How do we deal with our customers on the ground? How do we answer requests? If we touch on the hospitality aspect of it, that becomes extremely important because service is the biggest driver of brands. Our customer relations, our customer service, everything we do internally, again, has to trickle outside. Building vibrant communities. This is part of who we are. It answers what we believe in as an organization. Okay, so we might be more an organization that believes in technology, and we're going to build incredible tech parks. But if our organization as a purpose definition is about sustainability and protecting the environment, then that we're going to shift into this. So we cannot be somebody who believes in sustainability and go tech or vice versa. We need to define really who we are and what do we do. Okay.
That's a really interesting one for me in terms of the dimensions of differentiation, because also what we're seeing across the market is phase two, phase three, phase four iterations of successful communities,
Correct.
right back to the community
Correct.
point.
Yeah.
So you built something that you've stood for, but we see you know, whether it's Arabian Ranches 2, Arabian Ranches 3, Damac Hills 1, 2, with the expansion of that,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that is a proof point of building equity from a successful project and community, but then how you evolve that into the next iteration.
That's so important, actually. Again, this brings us back more to the push and pull. You know, how do we pull our market to us? How do we make our market and prospects want to work with us? And I don't think by numbering communities that's going to work. It's really how we build our success factors and how do we really build those best practices that make our customers believe in the successes that are going to come, because phase two might not be as successful as phase one. So how do we ensure to our customers that it will be? Because again, you're going to invest.
Yeah.
And that investment will carry a lot of risk. So definitely, how do we mitigate this it becomes very important. And finally, when we come to image again, crafting differentiation. I think that's a beautiful word because everything we did to differentiate on the inside has to be crafted perfectly to be brought to the outside. You know, your customer is going to see you first on your website, on your Instagram. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, that's how the world functions today, right? So, first contact, what do we want it to be? How can we make our first contact the best contact that our customer will be in touch with? Again, talking about equity. Okay. How are we consistent with all our points? How are we consistent with our communication? Because remember, your customer will not see your ads or your posts day in, day out. They will see it once in a blue moon. And we need to build a powerful connect within this gap between each and every communication that we do. So it's not about coming out with amazing campaigns and super slogans. It's about continuity. How do we generate continuity in our business that carries our purpose that we claimed from the moment we started the organization 10 years down the line? How can people say, yeah, that's the same company I worked with 10 years ago. And I love that. This is the assurance of a pull that we can create instead of pushing all the time. How do we create experiential journeys? Today, everything is about experiences.
Yeah.
Everything is about journeys. I see a lot of communities promoting their parks, their playgrounds, their facilities much more than the actual residents, because, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to live.
I think it's also these interactions you mentioned online, okay, we look across the digital world and every touch point of the customer journey, but how do you appeal to international audiences? So, for example, who don't have the time or the will to visit a physical sales center,
Correct.
how do you take the experience to them? I went through an interesting challenge recently we were discussing, which is predominantly a CBD mixed use destination with a small component of residential. But how do you appeal to business owners around the world? From startup entrepreneurs to C-level suite of multinational organizations.
Absolutely.
How do you take the experience to them? Do you create a digital version of the sales center or the experience center, if we want to call it that? Do we take them? I hate to use the word metaverse, but you know what I mean in terms of a digital phase one walkthrough through glasses, Oculus, whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
So thinking of new ways to engage
Yeah.
with an audience
I don't know if you've seen it
internationally.
on Newsweek online. They did that Abu Dhabi Cultural District
Yeah,
in 3D,
amazing. Yeah,
showing all the existing ones like the Louvre and the Abrahamic House, and then showing the Guggenheim and the Zayed Museum and the Natural History. And this is amazing for an audience that's sitting outside. This is incredible. People can get immersed in what's here and what's coming.
yes, the cultural district. Yeah,
It's really beautiful. So it's not about the 3D. It's not about the gimmick. It's about how much we can create experiences before actually people get to experience them live. And that's really the powerful trigger that works for investors, because investors can see where that project might be in terms of profit.
yes,
It works for owners, it works for everybody. So creating today those amazing experiences and journeys is very important, specifically in today's digital world. Building trust through authentic brand experiences. That's a beautiful sentence. Trust equals equity. Equity comes from perception. And all of those can only be generated through the right experiences. No pun intended, but it's not anymore about the brick and mortar. It's by far much more than this today. Okay. Matching the promise to reality, aligning with our communication. So this is how the 4 dimensions we talked about unfold when we engage in building an entire brand strategy. So peace of mind, quality of life. And we specifically mentioned investors, homeowners, and tenants because it works for everyone, and it's not only for the people who live inside one of the properties. So when we talk peace of mind, words like quality assurance and reliability, investment protection, safety and security, transparent processes, professional management, this is the peace of mind part where I feel at peace knowing that everything I invested is protected, being a rent or being the price of 1 unit or buying 20 units in a community. But when it comes to quality of life, the location prestige, and we started with this one because whether we like it or not, I need to be in a place that identifies with my own identity. The right to brag is extremely important today. Okay. Safety and maintenance, lifestyle amenities. I want a gym, even if I'm not going to use it. I just want the gym. It's part of me. I have a gym, and these things actually do work. Belonging to a community where I can allow my children to go play, where I can go for a walk in the evening, and premium services. Again, because I want them. So quality of life, peace of mind, the two most important keywords when it comes to the real estate overall industry. Quick case study, actually, we worked with a brand called Diyar Al Arabiya in Saudi Arabia. Uh, they were doing very well, but they were looking at how Saudi Arabia was growing today and how most of the young Saudis who went to study abroad came back, wanted to get married and start a home. And these were right in the middle between the typical culture of Saudi Arabia and the exposure to the Western culture.
Right.
So quite open-minded. They loved the new approach to housing, but at the same time, they still retain their culture, the cultural
Yeah,
part
the
of being
DNA
Saudi, the
of that.
DNA,
Yeah.
absolutely. And this is what has driven the entire approach to repositioning Diyar al-Arabiya, and hence the final simplified narrative, happy family, flourishing home. So we transcended the concept of a house to get into the home. But a home is the trigger of a happy family,
Mm.
and the happy family is the trigger of a flourishing home. So that was the chemistry that played within Diyar al-Arabiya. So although they were growing tremendously, they were looking at a new market that they were not able to reach from the get-go, because all the newer real estate brands were tapping into that market immediately. So how can we reposition ourselves to be able to tap into this market? So you can see on the left their old logo, and the one on the new one on the right, which was a nice play on the concept of the door, the access to that flourishing home, their values. For example, when we spoke about culture, holistic commitment, family first, that was a value that really drives the entire business from now on. Individual happiness, Arab values, and young at heart. So these were values that play together very well, although they might sound clashing at some point when you talk about Arab values, but young at heart. And this is the beautiful chemistry actually that pushed and catapulted that brand forward. So just a quick overview of how these things translated on the ground, using more aggressive color schemes than usual, using iconic approach for all the values that were translated into visual. So that's a very quick case study just to show how we can, through the power of a purpose, actually reposition a brand and really take it further and make it build more equity through perception, as we said. So I'm going to the poll.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, we'd like to ask just what do you feel your aha moment of the real estate markets in the region this year? What's really stood out for you, or a realization maybe in terms of challenges in the marketplace? So if you can put your thoughts in there, we can review and come back. There's Q&A at the end as well, so we can build further upon that. So please do put your thoughts in now to the poll moving forward.
Absolutely.
And so key trends shaping real estate, we've touched upon this, but certainly we would see this as four key areas, right, to drive that differentiation
Look at the numbers.
and growth. Yeah, branded residencies, 176% growth in the past decade, surge in demand, which is commanding an average of around about 30% plus in terms of higher premium.
Now that's
So,
a good point we talk about, price premium.
yes,
It's incredible how much people are willing to pay more, not for the physical location, but for the brand, which we call the brand premium.
yes.
So the moment you put a Bugatti or a Mercedes or an Armani, suddenly prices like
You buy into the asset of that brand, but
exactly,
also what it means from a lifestyle and prestige perspective,
absolutely,
right? So
absolutely,
yeah, that support and we can see that continually growing because it does give you that differentiation.
totally.
Um, but yeah, I think in future it's an interesting one because does it come to a point of saturation that there's too many
Well,
branded residences?
how
That's
did,
for another topic, another
yeah, how
discussion.
the day will see McDonald's doing a branded residence, then we'll know we're different.
True. Digital transformation, of course, we've touched upon this, but a lot is happening in the technology space. Beyond that of just the tech stack, but how AI is being integrated. We talked about tools in terms of master planning all the way through to content and communications, how it's driving, certainly tactically, but
Yeah.
supporting from master planning all the way through to the sales process,
Absolutely.
including how we're building first-party data and targeting to the right personas and segmentation groups. Even from brands and brand strategy all the way through
Yeah.
to implementation and
Totally. I mean, we
plan.
didn't bring it up throughout the discussion, but it's a given that data is your gold mine. So that's a given. We don't even talk about it. Data, it's everything. The more we engage, actually, the more data we collect. The more data we collect, the better we can re-engage. So it's an ongoing thing, but it all starts with data. So the big question is, how can we collect data? In order to collect data, we need to engage. How do we engage? How do we make customers talk to us so that we can listen? So it's a whole chemistry that always plays together interactively.
Yeah. Well, and even how then we're learning, test, evaluate, learn how we're personalizing content based upon what's working for us.
Totally.
The ability in terms of real-time insights, so how we can adapt our key messaging or selling points, right, or
Absolutely.
unique components to be the trigger points for further communication and engagement with our audiences. So mass shifts in that sphere. Mixed use developments, of course, we're seeing this trend away from singular into more master planning, right? And
Yes.
I mean, this has been happening for
A lot.
many decades now,
Yeah.
but continues to grow across the region, and how you blend seamlessly multiple components to build attractiveness and obviously equity in what you're creating, and brand being at the central of that, in terms of
Totally.
what that promise is and how you deliver that differentiation in the marketplace. Sustainability, again, we've touched upon, but from not only green building, but universal global initiatives in terms of building standards, right?
Yeah.
And how you can bring not only environmental aspects into it, but sustainable.
Absolutely. I mean,
Even when you look at modular building now, what's happening
if you look at
globally.
the GCC region, really, I mean, there are a couple of key components that are so important for sustainability environmentally, but also cost-wise. I mean, AC, how much do we spend on air conditioning? So what's the win-win situation if we create greener buildings? So that will save on the environment, but also save on the pocket. So these are, little things that can make a big difference.
Even we were talking yesterday for one of our other clients about water treatment, right? So
There you go.
from sewage into then actually being, utilized,
That circle.
that circle
Absolutely.
of sustainability. So yeah, lots of areas and shift again, which is driving differentiation across the market. Strategic framework, really just in terms of the importance, just finishing up. So first of all, defining a brand purpose is critical, and that aligns with our aspirational values. A focus on innovation. I mean, innovation is a buzzword. What does it truly mean, though? What are we doing to drive innovation and smart and not just sustainable solutions? Building culture. So foster trust through inclusive communities, how you're engaging with communities, but also internally, right? How you're supporting that through your staff in every touch point of engagement online and offline. Refining image or even image creation, right? From scratch, how we can maintain that uniqueness and coherence in our messaging across every point of the customer journey, and always communicating the why. I mean, to your point.
Oh, yeah, that's the most beautiful word in my business. We always talk about the what. We rarely think about the why. People don't care about the what. Honestly, nobody cares about what you're bringing to the table. It doesn't get more blunt than that. People care about the why you're bringing it to the table. So tell me what you got, but tell me what's in it for me. So always, always, always answer that big question. Why? Keep asking yourselves why until you cannot ask it anymore. This is where the answer is, not in the beginning. So
Absolutely. So, key takeaways.
brand strategy drives tangible value through intangibles. I love that actually. Build equity, enhance trust and perception, and drive premium pricing power. So if we want to make more money, it's not in taller buildings, it's in bigger equity. This is the driver. The four dimensions framework: purpose, innovation, culture, and image, and the strategic implications. once you get to download the white paper later, you'll see we write it at the end. It's that 2 x 4 combination, the 4 dimensions plus peace of mind and quality of life. When these two are put into one combination, trust me, you will never fail. But it has to be done the right way. And we have to be bold about it and aggressive about it. No fear, because any pending point we don't have an answer to is a weak link in the chain.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a successful real estate brand is a promise of a lifestyle and assurance of quality and a reflection of personal aspirations, and actually much more than that, the quantifiable approach and how you deliver across that. Now, for more insights, that was just some key findings and highlights, but there is a white paper to download. A lot of hard work and insightful information has gone into that. So please do download. Available now from the QR code you can see on screen, or subsequent links if you get in contact. We're happy to provide that report for you.
Amazing. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Any burning questions? If not, we can also take offline at another stage. Also, appreciate we've run over time a little bit.
Yeah.
Always a subject we're passionate about.
Thank you very much, everybody, and hope to see you on our next webinar.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.